Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. First of all, if you're new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day. So if you're looking for some reading inspiration, if you want to know what other people are reading this summer, if you just like to follow book reviews, then maybe feel free to stick around. Now let's talk about today's book. Today, I am going to be reviewing Volume 10 in a series that I have been rereading, and that is No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault, I'm Not Popular by Nico Tanigawa. So I did already read this series partially back in 2021, but now I'm rereading the series all the way through, or for as much as has been completed now. So I am reading Volume 10 for the second time, but it's been 2 years since I last read it, so this is kind of a fresh review. So, because this is volume 10, I'm going to assume that you have a little bit of familiarity with the story up to this point, but in case you don't, let's talk about what's been happening in this series up to this point. No matter how I look at it, It's You Guys' Fault, I'm Not Popular follows Tomoko. Tomoko is a high school student who thought going into high school that she was going to have this thing down. She has played a lot of video games where the protagonist is a high school girl, so she thought she was going to come into high school and just rock it. Unfortunately, reality hit like a freight train, and life's a little bit difficult for Tomoko. I feel like Tomoko has a smattering of depression and a little bit of social anxiety. She's very awkward, she's very klutzy, she puts her foot in her mouth a lot of the time. She does and says things that are embarrassing or socially awkward, and she is incredibly lonely above everything else. And I think that especially at this time in someone's life when they're a teen, they really are craving that belonging, that sense of being in the group. So for someone like Tomoko, who thought that high school was going to be a fun time, finding herself on the outside of that group is incredibly painful. And this series kind of chronicles Tomoko going through high school. Now, if you're thinking this sounds horribly depressing, I will admit that the first couple volumes in this series can be very rough to get through. I personally find some humor in the moments that Tomoko goes through, but I definitely understand if this is a series that is not for everybody. I, however, like it, and I also found it easier to read it the second time through because I know that there's payoff. I know that Tomoko grows as a person and we see those growth, and I eat up these slow burn sort of things, whether it's romance or personal development, where we can see things slowly accumulate and the payoff over time. So I knew that this payoff was coming, and that is why I think it was easier for me to read those first couple volumes, but man, are those first couple volumes in this series tough. Tomoko has been growing a little bit. However, growth doesn't happen all at once, and in this series, growth is very small and very incremental. And Tomoko, I feel like at the beginning of volume 10, we kind of see her plateauing. She's been reaching out, she's been trying to talk to people, trying to make friends, trying to make those connections that all humans want with one another, but she feels like she can't do it. She always is, again, she puts her foot in her mouth quite a bit. She says things that are socially awkward. She's very anxious and stressed out, and sometimes she takes this and she is mean to others because of it, which it's important to note that just because you're lonely, just because you have anxiety, just because you are isolated, doesn't give you a right to then go hurt other people. And Tomoko sometimes says and does things intentionally to hurt or humiliate other people because it's a defense mechanism, basically. I feel like whenever she thinks she's getting too close to somebody, or someone does something that she wants for herself, instead of recognizing that person has it and I don't, I feel like that pain is too much sometimes for Tomoko to deal with. So instead she says or does something that's going to embarrass the other person, but most of the time it just comes back looking embarrassing on her. So at the beginning of volume 10, I feel like it's very hard to sympathize with Tomoko because she's kind of doing a lot of that lashing out to like her friends and people around her, and you just want to shake her and be like, no, listen, you want to be friends with these people, so stop trying to burn the bridge that someone else has built to get to know you. People want to be your friend, people want to connect with you. All humans want to connect, or most humans want to connect with other people, so you should take your classmates as genuine people. But Tomoko at the beginning of volume 10 is kind of plateauing with her progress, and she kind of has a little bit of that lashing out. So at the beginning of volume 10, it becomes a little bit harder to sympathize with Tomoko. However, the second half of volume 10 features something that I think really showcases the growth of Tomoko. This is something that would not have happened in her first year of high school. At this point in the series, she's in her second year of high school, but she has decided to go to eat in the cafeteria by herself. This is something that she has had to work up a lot of courage and nerve to go do. She's not comfortable going to the cafeteria by herself, but she goes out of her comfort zone. She goes down to the cafeteria to eat. And this represents, or this shows, huge growth from Tomoko. I feel like if this had been 5 volumes ago, she just would have eaten in the bathroom, eaten under the stairs, eaten quietly in a classroom. She just wanted to be left alone, but she's getting out of that comfort zone, and just that small decision to actually go out of her comfort zone is something that I feel like shows how much she's grown as a person. And of course, while she's in the cafeteria, other people see her, and some people actually comment like, oh, I think it's admirable that you had the courage to go and eat alone in the cafeteria, because I never would have had that courage. So slowly some people who she's built some connections with by going on the class trip or other things around the school, there are people that she has started to build these connections with, and with all these connections they start to come and congregate at her table in the cafeteria. And there's a huge turning point. It's a little moment overall, but I feel like it's huge in the personal growth of Tomoko. I don't know, I almost said Kaguya. Wrong series. Tomoko. Which I feel like just showcases how far she's grown, and it's more of a mental thing for Tomoko. As I mentioned, Tomoko does a lot of this. I'm trying to find the page this is on, sorry. Tomoko does a lot of this where she'll be mean. It's like she sees something that she wants, and then she just trashes. So if she sees a woman or like another high school girl who's dressed in like a cute outfit, she's like, oh, I bet they're just like, they're not smart, they're just a dumb airhead, they only care about, like, that's just an example. I don't know if that actually happened in the book, but she sees something that she actually deep down inside wants, and instead of just admitting that person has something that she wants, she has this defense mechanism where she just tries to act like she hates it. She hates those people, but she's pretending like she hates those people because they're airheads or they're stupid or whatever her reasoning is, but she actually wants to be part of that friend group. And there's this moment where everyone has come to sit, just kind of slowly come up to her table to sit with her in the cafeteria, and she has this thought process on page 104 where she's thinking, she's like thinking this, she says this would be more comfortable if they have shitty personalities. Basically, she's realizing these people that she's characterized as horrible aren't actually horrible people. They're actually super nice. They're including her. They're actually changing the conversation so she has things that she can talk about. And she says, thinking back, I used to envy and curse this group during the first year, but now she's not feeling that envy. She's not feeling that, she's not cursing this group. She's not immediately jumping to that defense mechanism, which we have seen for the last 9 volumes, probably 9.5, because she's doing it at the beginning of volume 10. And by not jumping to this defense mechanism, it just showcases the personal growth that she's been through. I feel like if you've been reading this series, you see how many times she, like, all her destructive defense mechanisms, they just pop up again and again and again. And as a reader, you're like, Tomoko, no, you are upset because you have you're socially isolated, but you do things to perpetuate your social isolation by your negative coping mechanisms. That's how this cycle is being perpetuated. And I think it was really the class trip that kind of got the cycle out of whack, so that it kind of broke that cycle a little bit, and that's kind of where that personal growth has been coming from. And I feel like the payoff is now starting. Well, the payoff has been happening, but the payoff we also get in volume 10. Volume 10 is just a continuation of this series, but again, things are going upwards. We feel like she has a group of people who are connecting with her. She's getting out of her comfort zone. And even though we still have moments where we're like, no, Tomoko, you don't do that, we're seeing the growth, and we see that this is kind of going in a positive direction, or an upward swing, which I feel like makes me more positive for the next books in the series. Of course, I think I read through volume 14 or 15 when I originally read this in 2021. So I do know that the next couple volumes kind of do continue in this positive trend. So if you're worried about this, that this might be a little false hope, things do continue in a positive direction for our protagonist. But in this series, it is definitely a slow burn, and the payoff comes slowly but surely. But I feel like it's very representative of growth, because growth can take a long time to happen. Personal growth can take a long time to happen. And I feel like because of the patience, the waiting that we've had to do to watch Tomoko go through all these embarrassing things, it makes the little wins, and especially the little wins that are starting to add up in volume 10, really meaningful. And that's how we get to the point where a scene with a high school girl sitting with her friends in a cafeteria can be really, really meaningful and a sweet scene to read. I am loving this series. As I said before, I definitely understand if this is not your cup of tea. If you do not enjoy this series, I get it. I feel like it can be a hard series to read, or it could just not be everyone's cup of tea. But I'm loving this series. I'm obviously going to continue to read it. I'm enjoying it. And I would love to hear what you think. If you have any comments, questions, anything that you think about this series that you would like to leave down below, I would love to hear it. If you have any other manga series you think I should be reading, I would love to hear that as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.